I'm Toni Mateos from Freeverse. We are the builders of the Laos network. We currently are a parachain in Kusama, coming to Polkadot hopefully in about two months, more or less. We have a booth out there in the networking area. If you're interested in further details after the demo today, please, it will be a pleasure to solve any doubts. I would like to concentrate on the demos during this presentation and perhaps omit some of the setup phase and some of the details that go behind in the background. So I'll be speaking about two patterns that we are specialized in exploiting, in leveraging, if you want, that connect Ethereum, Polygon, and basically all these major ecosystems to Polkadot without bridges, okay? Without bridges. This means that there are a lot of things that we cannot do, obviously, but I hope I can motivate that there are a number of things that we can do very efficiently as well that can offload a lot of the transactions that are needed in Ethereum and all these blockchains to Polkadot, which is heavily infra-utilized in comparison, all right? By means of motivation, just to let you know some numbers I collected about 7 months ago. On Ethereum alone, 1 billion gas fees were paid in 2022 just to mint NFTs, only for minting, okay? Around 80 million mints. Roughly 20% of all transactions. Same for Polygon, indeed. This number, 20%, seems to be kind of consistent across many ecosystems. To give you a comparison, all the roll-ups of Ethereum that are so hot these days, we've heard about L2s and all that stuff on Ethereum, they represent between 10 and 15% of transactions going on the network. And that alone has motivated something like the DevCoin upgrade that is going on as I speak, just to make life easier for those 10 to 15% of transactions and make it a little bit cheaper, right? So if we could externalize this 20% out of Ethereum and Polygon to Polkadot, that would be a massive win. In terms of total market cap of these layer 2s that are trying to scale Ethereum, I don't even want to get into that, but it's huge, right? So the business of scaling Ethereum or any of the transactions going on Ethereum is actually huge. So I hope I've motivated that if we manage, and this is one of the missions of Laos, the parachain, to connect and offload, at least, even if it's only the minting transactions, away from those ecosystems into Polkadot, in a way that people remain on Ethereum, Polygon, so all their users remain there, but somehow they've externalized the part of the minting, that would be huge. And that's one of the goals that we are after, and that we are live already in Kusama, and you can go and try yourself, right? So I'll go straight to the demo and then maybe go behind the scenes, right? So what are we going to see in the demo? There's going to be two accounts. The creator wants to mint millions of assets on Ethereum or Polygon, right, to their users. But he doesn't want to pay ETH, he doesn't want to pay Matic, not just because of the cost, which is huge, but also because they would congest both networks otherwise. It's just they don't have enough throughput, right? So the creator knows about Laos, knows about Polkadot, and will leverage that. The recipient, all these people they are minting assets for, the gamers, the collectors, or real-world assets, whatever it is, they don't even know Polkadot exists or Laos exists. They just want to, from their point of view, they remain on Polygon, they remain on Ethereum, and they use Matic and they use ETH once the assets have been minted for them. Okay? So that's the story. That's the use case. Scale those networks without even your users realizing that you're using Polkadot in the background. So the guy receiving the NFT will be able to use all the ecosystem in the platform they've chosen, in Ethereum or Polygon, right? OpenSea, use MetaMask and import it into MetaMask, all that stuff. So we're going to see that in the demo, hopefully, if everything goes right. So let's switch here. So this is just a very simple front end that you can actually go there and try by yourself, right? The network is EVM compatible, so you could do this with your Ethereum libraries and at mass scale. Here we will just do it one by one, right? Just a very simple interface. So as said, before I start, hopefully you can see on my MetaMask, this is going to be the recipient. The recipient has Matic. Let's use Polygon. It's a little bit faster than Ethereum for the purpose of the demo, but we could use Ethereum as well. So he has Matic, but he doesn't have Laos tokens, or he doesn't have DOT, doesn't know we exist. The creator account, here we are, doesn't have Matic, right? It's the other way around. This guy will not spend a single Matic to mint at mass scale if he wanted on Polygon, all right? Of course, this guy has Laos tokens, as we will see. So let's start. So start bridges minting. I'm going to mint an asset super quick. Let me be loose. So I like this picture. Just to prove that I just minted it today, I don't know, sub0, a keyword, I don't know, morning, all right? And this is an awesome asset. And let's mint it in Polygon because it's going to be a little bit faster. I've skipped the setup phase, right? But there is already something set up. We'll go to the details later. There is a collection that I already can mint. Everybody can. Actually, it's open to everybody to mint on Ethereum or on Polygon. Let's use that collection. And let's mint for the recipient. So, sorry, I have it somewhere there. Let me copy-paste for the recipient. OK, let's mint one asset. So while it's going on, so right now we are uploading stuff to IPFS. We could do it on-chain if we wanted and put all the metadata, except for the image, on-chain. And right now, once we've uploaded to IPFS, I'm going to go slowly. You see MetaMask is asking me to pay to mint an asset in Polygon, but I'm going to pay in Laos tokens. The K in front of Laos is because we're in Kusama for the time being. We'll remove the K when we go to Polkadot, right? So I'll switch to, as a creator, I will pay only in Polkadot, right, in Laos tokens. So I switch to Laos. I will pay right now, we're using it as a testing framework, the Kusama chain. So the token doesn't have any value. The TGE will happen when we go to Polkadot in 2 months, right? So, but it's going to be ridiculously priced compared to minting on Ethereum or even Polygon, right? So I'm waiting for the 12 seconds of finality. You're used to that? OK, asset minted. So let me see the asset super quick. Here's where the journey of the creator finishes in the demo, right? I could have done this in millions, literally, today. Right? And I'll show you a demo later that exploits it much more. Let's take the point of view of the recipient. Right? You've minted millions of assets. Let me see what my users see. So I log in, or I enable the recipient account here. OK. So as a recipient, I've been given this asset. I can import it to MetaMask as if it was a Polygon asset. So let's go slowly. OK, it tells me, hey, enable import in MetaMask, all right? I'm going to go slowly. So you see, MetaMask is asking me to switch to Polygon, right? This is an asset on Polygon. He will go to Polygon and test that this asset is mine before showing it in the wallet, as you are familiar with. So I will switch. I will add my NFT. And just to prove that it's there, so slowly, I'm connected to Polygon, the icon on the top left. I've got Matic, and if I go to my NFTs, this should be the last one here. Let me check. Yeah, sub0 morning. This is the asset we just did, right? So I've done it in millions. My millions of gamers, I've given them every day many assets to my millions of users in my video game or wherever my dApp is about, and they can readily trade it using the ecosystem right there. So in particular in MetaMask, right? I can send the asset to somebody. Let me send it to myself, or I don't know, whatever first account appears there. And there I'm using Matic. I'm not forcing them to wrap their currencies to a layer 2 that is maybe insecure and then use the bridge or whatever. They already have Matic. They already have ETH. They already have all the infrastructure to operate with the assets there. So yeah, let's just prove that I can, right? I'm just trying to prove now that the entire ecosystem is ready for my users, even though I externalized the minting, all right? So as soon as this is finished, one thing I can do as well is go to OpenSea and put the asset for sale, right? I could try to complete the demo. So let's go to a standard OpenSea asset. This should be the link of one of the assets. Let me change the asset ID by the asset ID we just created, this one. So I've changed the asset ID here by that one. OK, so this is not our interface. This is OpenSea, right? So in OpenSea, the asset appears there. I haven't logged in as the guy I sent it to, but if I were, I could just list it for sale, right? So this kind of completes the first part of the demo, right? We are ready to offload 20% of all transactions from all the major ecosystems to Polkadot, through Laos if you want it, all right? And this is massive. That I think if we are successful at communicating this, I was at ETH Denver last week, to everyone actually paying and congesting the network every now and then, all those networks, I think this could be a great thing to start. Putting all the core, amazing core that Polkadot has at the disposal of scaling other networks. And as you've seen, no wrapping of coins, and it's available immediately on the target network, right? As opposed to having to wait for a long period of time. Good. If you want to go in a little bit behind the scenes, let me see how I'm doing on time. OK, yeah, we're doing fine. Behind the scenes, what's going on? So this is the setup phase that I skipped, OK? So there is just one time that the creator has to incur gas fees on Ethereum or Polygon or whatever network they've chosen, only once, in setting up, deploying their 7-to-1 contract, right? To make it work in this bridgeless pattern that I've just demoed, we provide a template. They can do whatever they want, but it adds an extra piece of logic on top of the 7-to-1 familiar methods that helps this connection connect with a parachain, right? The connection is via, well, once it is done, I'll get into details. The recipients can do everything related to ownership of the asset here, using trading, lending, everything DeFi, whatever is available on that network. Whereas the creator continues minting and even evolving the assets. You know, if you're playing a video game and you reach level 20, you can continue evolving them on Polkadot on Laos. Behind the scenes, what's going on is that we're using, on deploy, this extra piece of logic is basically like pre-allocating a huge amount, virtually infinite to the 96, of potential slots, we call them slots, for every possible 160 bits address on Ethereum, so that as user 0 ABC 123, I've got 2 to the 96 possible assets that can be minted to me on that particular collection, each of which slots is actually pointing to a resource in Laos, right? And to point there, we're using basically the same construct that we've been using on Polkadot, universal location, to refer, you know, relatively between parachains, so that, as we saw before, you can send messages and stuff and transfer. But in this case, just to link the two memory positions, if you wanted. So once they are set up, I can just, as a creator, incur gas fees on the right-hand side and just mint on the corresponding slot, and this is immediately reflected on the other side. Slightly more details behind the scenes, just like IPFS is something that everybody now knows how to deal with. If I write it in my Brave browser, it will resolve it through whatever gateway they are using. Maybe it's their own one. Maybe they use a public one. So I don't know. There are 2 default public gateways that many people use. Just like IPFS, we're basically trying to push for the use of, sorry, this IO shouldn't be there, just ulog.// to refer to things in consensus systems that are not yours, right? It could be yours as well, of course. But it's the very same pattern, right? And what's on the right-hand side here is basically the same string that you would normally find in the documentation of universal location between parachains. So in this case, I'm referring from Ethereum to Polkadot. This is global consensus 3. Our parachain, Laos, actually this is probably Kusama, wherever, pallet instance, so on and so forth, right? And it's up to you, and this is fully decentralized, how you resolve that, right? So there is a gateway already up and running that we provided, but this is, everybody can do. It's just a few lines of code to resolve what this thing is storing for you, okay? So that's a little bit what's going on behind the scenes, and that's why there are no bridges, and that's why this is fully decentralized, because any DApp can actually use their own gateway, okay? I'd like to spend 2 or 3 minutes understanding what's required in the ecosystem to change, to actually use this pattern. From the point of view of the recipient, as you saw, nothing, right? So assets are minted to you. You can use MetaMask or OpenSea, everything that you need. From the point of view of the creator, they know that Laos exists. They need to have their corresponding tokens. And because it's EVM compatible, they can use standard Web3 libraries. And here's the point. For DApp developers that use indexers, for example, right, like most marketplaces or even games, because we're using 2 consensus systems, as opposed to 1 consensus system, Ethereum, pointing to IPFS, which is what normally is done for NFTs or to a private server, because you actually have a 2nd consensus system, you can do much more. And you can do their life so easy that all they have to do is to change the RPC endpoint that they normally point to. So instead of pointing to an Ethereum node, they can point to what we call a universal Ethereum node or a universal Polygon node, which is what I will describe in a sec, but it's super simple. So if you consider the current state, so normally these marketplaces, when they want to display the NFT for you, they first ask Ethereum, what's the NFT, where does it point to, do you own it, etc. And then they either go to a private server or to IPFS to be able to render it. In our case, we encapsulate two consensus systems in the apparently it just looks like one from the point of view of the DApp developer. Basically, what's behind the scenes, there are two consensus systems, in this case, Ethereum or Polygon and Laos. And there's a tiny piece of software, with a really thin layer, that builds a simple database that basically scans for minting events here, right, and stores them so that they are really ready for you to use. And when you're asking for, hey, how many tokens does this guy have, right? So you, behind the scenes, are understanding how many were traded. Is it still yours? Is it not yours? And this happens on Ethereum. And has it been minted, for example, to begin with, things like this. So the combination of the two things, you don't even realize you use the same interface as the 721, and the reply that you get back is the correct one. But from your point of view as a DApp developer or an indexer, all you're doing is changing your RPC endpoint, which you can host. Everything is open source, right? So, likewise, for minting events. So hey, give me all the mint events from this contract on Ethereum. And basically, this universal node is making the fusion of what's going on behind the, in the two consensus systems and returning it to you. Remember, this would not be possible if this thing here was IPFS. Because in IPFS, you don't even know if something exists in IPFS. You can query it. If you get the return, you know it exists somewhere in IPFS. But if you don't get it back, maybe you couldn't find it today. Maybe it's not available today. Maybe it will be available in a year's time. Maybe it was never available. And you cannot even ask when was it made available for the first time, right? But having two consensus systems, everything is traceable, and you can just operate as usual, all right? This concludes the first part of the demo. So I'll pause here for 5 seconds because I want to speak about something completely different for the second part, all right? OK, so we saw how we can use universal location to map things on the right-hand side to Polkadot. Let's experiment what can we do if we actually point towards the other side. And I want to speak about something we call decentralized asset ID, not a decentralized ID, all right? And it will allow us to do something that we also think it's kind of cool, and with the clients that potential users that we've talked to, they kind of like it. So super quickly, what is decentralized ID? You know very well, so just one slide. You have a Web3 address, and people can make claims about your Web3 address, right? The government can say you're a US citizen, so on and so forth. Your friend can say you're a human. And even you can talk about yourself and say you've won 2 Nobel Prizes. It's up to you, to everyone in the world, to give some credibility to any of the Web3 addresses claiming things about you. This is why it's decentralized, all right? Good. Let's slowly go to decentralized asset ID. First, asset ID. An asset ID these days is basically somebody deploying a contract, say on Ethereum, making it point to typically IPFS, a centralized server, saying what the asset really is, right? So that's normally what we consider an asset identity. An asset identity is what the creator of the asset said the asset is, okay? By the way, I think we've seen it a lot on these conferences, that there are a lot of initiatives to let other people also control what the asset is, right? It's an asset in a video game. I want it to display it in a different video game and maybe evolve some metadata as well in that video game. There are many use cases, and everybody's coming up with different solutions, right? Solana has update authority so that others can do it, and then revoke it. Unique Network has, I think, add collection, remove collection admin. There are proposals. OK, welcome to decentralized asset identity. If you look at it from the point of view of decentralized ID, the first thing we saw, let me see, is basically the equivalent of me talking about myself. Of course, with more power, right? The asset creator has a lot of power to say what the asset really is, right? So we're not going to talk about it. We're going to leave it there. That will always be there, what the creator says the asset is. But hey, why should we make it so difficult for others to extend the asset or evolve the asset in different ways? Let it be permissionless. Let anyone, maybe a different game, wants to use that particular axe, right? And just expand it. Maybe it's a sandbox game. I want it to, so the pixels look really thick. And I want to put an extra attribute in my video game. Why do I need to ask permission to do that? Just go ahead and say it. You're going to say it with your Web3 address. Whoever is going to play the video game, etc., is going to know that this is what the video game is using the asset for. Up to them to use it or not. In particular, the game will use it, right? Maybe you want to extend it without changing the image. You just want to put extra attributes. So it's the collection of what everybody has been saying about the asset that really is telling you what the asset is. Not just the creator. The creator is just the main instance of those claims, right? But everybody can say things about it. And the value of this slot here is the accrued, the aggregated value of what everybody else in the world is saying about the asset, not just the creator, right? So use cases for that. It's kind of weird. I mean, you can really start coming up with very novel use cases. Copyright, right? So we are familiar with the problem of copyright issues with NFTs, right? Imagine that the US copyright agency or whatever copyright agency was emitting, copyright claims about an asset, that maybe it's infringing copyright or maybe that it isn't, when actually the person is actually paying for the license, for example, and you've got when was it paid and that it's legal to use. So you're a video game, you want to import assets from all around, for NFTs from all around, you just use the ones that are cleared by the US agency, for example. For real-world assets, right? So either housing or music rights, somebody that is an expert on the music on music in the music industry, or on judging the price of apartments, and they've gone there and they've checked it, they can claim what they think is their return value during the next year, for example, about that asset. Don't ask permission to say that. Just go ahead and say it, and people will give credibility to your claims or not, depending on the reputation that you have. Even the original creator of the assets can extend them, right? So the Bored Apes are a static contract. You cannot change absolutely anything from there. Let's say Nike goes to the creators and say, hey, why don't you do a seasonal campaign with caps that show Nike for Christmas, whatever, So if it is the creator of the assets, of the original creation, of the original collection, that is extending them through this mechanism, it's basically like making them dynamic or like extending their life, right? And you can see that it was them that are actually extending their life. So you give more credibility to that, and the value of that asset maybe is more than if I just go ahead and I do it, right? So one of the other things that Laos is specialized is in precisely doing this. We use universal location again from Laos to refer to assets in all blockchains, not ours. Blockchains that already exist and that already have assets with a lot of value. So if I go to a particular example, so this is an asset that exists on Polygon Mumbai. There has been 3 extensions already about the asset. This asset exists on Ethereum. There has been 6 extensions. This is just a way that people could display it, maybe in marketplaces, like there has been a lot of talking about this asset, and I can check who did what. There has been an extension by the collection creator. Maybe you cannot read it. So for whatever reason, the intention is clear that he did something. And some other extensions by Web3 addresses that maybe I know about or maybe I don't know about. So when I check it, I don't know. Let me check this one. View. OK, so this guy extended is just an example and said, hey, there is an extended attribute that I call, and I put a value of 2, whatever, right? It could be a video game. It could be many of the examples we said before. And this is ready for everybody to use. If you just go to Laos here, you'll be able to start extending any asset you want on any blockchain that you want, right? Assets that already exist or assets that will exist in the future. So this kind of concludes my presentation. Let me see. Yeah. So yeah, we're going to go live in Polkadot in 2 months. We're there to solve any questions that you have about things going on in the background. If you are interested in participating in the private token sale right now, here we are as well, or investors. And yeah, see you in Polkadot in a couple of months, hopefully. Thank you very much.